and the world. Today is Monday, April 28th, 2025. You know, as Thomas Paine once opined in 1776, think about that. These are the times that try men's souls.
Mm.
Yes, they are. You are viewing Issues and Answers on the WCEG Network. I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. My goal is to enlighten your perspectives about our environment, our socio-political struggles, those banes of classism and racism that make all of our lives more difficult than they should be. In so doing, our hope is to bring us all together in a human tapestry of brotherhood and sisterhood, bound together by threads of understanding, respect, and tolerance of our physical, racial, and religious differences. And hopefully, we can have a discussion of ideas based on facts, not fiction, that will encourage us to think critically and not emotionally. You know, 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quoted those words, and I speak them to you today because these words must stay in the forefront of our minds as we witness the moral fabric of our country being torn apart by men and women who more resemble the leaders of World War II Germany than they do of any American leadership since the 1830s. You know, on my installment of Issues and Answers, on February 8th, 2021, our installment was entitled The American Apocalypse. And on
Mm.
my last program, I asked all of you to watch that. And I encourage you who are listening today, take a little time to look it up. You can easily find it, The American Apocalypse. Put WCEG after that. And the date is February 8th, 2021. Much of what you see today, we predicted back then because of the infiltration of the Republican Party by members of the Nazi Party who immigrated to this country via Operation Paperclip. Look it up, it's history. If you're currently watching, we thank you. Inform your neighbors, friends, and associates that we can be viewed live via YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and over streaming devices such as Roku. Our podcasts are available via Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, and GeoSavin platforms. All of our programs, including this one, especially, are archived on YouTube and can be viewed by anyone at any time. Please understand that the topics and opinions of Issues and Answers are those of the host and my guest host, and not WCEG Network. So let's get moving on this installment of Issues and Answers. This morning, I heard Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts as he stated the following, quote, "All of this is a pattern of fundamental authoritarianism, which Trump is trying to make part of our country. Every American should be afraid," end quote. Are you afraid? Today, I would like to welcome our esteemed guest host, Miss Barbara R. Arnwine, Esquire. And I will begin by presenting her biography, which, although extensive, justifies her expertise on our topic today. I think it is so important. She worked for this. She has been a public servant, I don't know, long time. But she is the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. It's internationally renowned for contributions to critical justice issues, including the passage of landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the 2006 reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Currently, she also serves as co-chair and facilitator of the National Commission for Voter Justice, the Millennial Votes Matters convenings, and the Voting Rights Alliance. She was the head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law from February 1989 until June 2015, and holds the honorific title of President Emeritus. She has served as the Charles Hamilton Chair of the North Carolina Central University School of Law from 2016 to 2017, and has also taught at Columbia University School of Law. Boy, they have been in the news. She also, excuse me, she also uh, uh, she continues as a champion of civil rights and racial justice nationally and internationally in the areas of housing and lending, women's rights, especially issues affecting intersectionality and African American women and girls, community development, employment, voting, education, policing, restructuring, close to my heart, and environmental justice. Ms. Arnwine's work also includes immigrant rights, judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, healthcare disparities, LGBTQIA rights. A prominent leader in the civil rights and human rights community, she fights for the preservation of affirmative action and diversity programs. She is also an outspoken voice about the need for reparations for African descendants in the Americas. In addition, Ms. Arnwine's instrumental work leading to the passage of the 1991 Civil Rights Act, she has served in numerous other prestigious capacities, including international civil, human, and women's rights matters. Under her leadership, during her previous years at the Lawyer Committee and now currently at the Transformative Justice Coalition, she has participated in monitoring treaty compliance and responding to reports written by the United States regarding the requirements of both the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination following the United Nations Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review. Ms. Arnwine is a prominent founder of Election Protection, one of our topics today, the nation's largest nonpartisan voter protection coalition. Launched in 2004, it consists of historically disenfranchised persons to exercise the fundamental right to vote. Today, the coalition consists of more than 100 organizations and thousands of attorney volunteers. The EP hotlines are 1-866 our vote, that's OURVOTE, and 1-888 VE-Y-VOTA are the centerpieces of the program, and cover the years they have received hundreds of thousands of calls during election cycles. Additionally, the EP and Lawyers Committee websites and social media received millions of visits over the 3 years. In early 2011, Ms. Arnwine and the Lawyers Committee began tracking suppressive voting legislation nationwide and created the now well-known Map of Shame, which served as a wake-up call to the American people about states' proposals or disenfranchising legislation that primarily threaten the right to vote of minorities, students, low-income, disabled, and elderly persons. Ms. Arnwine was at the vanguard of speaking out about this injustice and educating the public about these efforts to undermine our democracy when no one was paying attention, including the mainstream media. I know about that. Ms. Arnwine served as the national convener of the National Conference of African American Women and the Law, held in Washington, D.C., and subsequently led a delegation to the UN's NGO Forum and Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. Her efforts there contributed to a UN platform for action that provides protection for women who confront multiple forms of discrimination. She convened the Third National Conference of African American Women in the Law in Washington, D.C. Some 250 participants and 15 workshops provided the input of a report and action agenda for advocacy before the UN General Assembly and special session on women. She continues to lead the efforts of the African American Women in Law Conference series, including convening in October 2016 and a planned convening for 2018. Wow, that's back. And I'm going to stop right about there because we've got another like 5 minutes of qualifications. I think you know this lady is qualified to speak on the topics we will get into. Welcome, Miss Arnwine Esquire, to WCEG again. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back, and thank you for that introduction. That was gracious of you. Thank you, sir.
I think it's so important, and you're involved in so many like active projects that are going on right now.
I better be.
Yes.
Because if you don't fight back, they'll run right over you. I mean, this is not the time for inaction.
That's the plan.
Yes.
That's the plan. And you know, it's what did you call it? Flooding the zone?
Yes, that was from Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon said that in the first 3 months of their being in office, that they would, quote, flood the zone. And that is just to do everything possible to concentrate all attention on what the Trump administration was doing, but to do so many things like issuing over 100 plus executive orders so that people would be frazzled, fragmented, confused, overwhelmed, frustrated. That was their whole, agenda, and hoping that they could, confuse people enough that nobody could fight back because there was too much to fight back against. But what they forgot is that they may be their own movement, but we've had movements for centuries. And our centuries of movement is all about what? Liberation and fighting back. So we've been able to divide these 100 plus executive orders among ourselves. We've been able to litigate against them. And as you know, we won 80 cases already.
Yes.
We're not playing. Yes. We're not going to sit back and allow everything that Harriet Tubman, that Frederick Douglass, that all our foreparents fought for to just be thrown into the streets as trash. We will never take it. We will fight to the death for the voting rights of our people, for a free and open democracy, and we will never stop opposing fascism.
And that's where we are. I mean, if you need, there's no greater wake-up call than what you have just enunciated. I mean, it's as the senator said this morning, we need to be afraid if we don't have people speaking up. This is not the time for silence. I just received a quote from Zora Neale Hurston, which says, "If you're silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it's essential. Fascism and racism, everybody, are twins. They are fraternal twins. They're interdependent. There's not a place in the world and in the history of mankind or humankind where you will find fascism existing without racism. The same thing is true of racism. You won't find racism without fascism, because you can't have a free and open society and have either one in existence. And uttering, using that whole tactic of, hating somebody because of their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their race, whatever, is an old tactic. Their religion, good grief. Look at all the people that have been killed in the name of different religions in this world. It's just, that's always a tactic. But in order to impose those kind of inhumane restrictions like segregation and apartheid on the people, you can't do that in an open society. You have to have fascism to impose it, to keep it, to restrict people, to take people's rights away. You got to have both. And so I want people to understand that fascism and racism are the same, that they're interdependent twins. They're not identical, That's why I say they're fraternal twins, because they're very different in many respects, but they're interdependent.
There's an old saying that says, fascism will come to America waving a flag and carrying a Bible.
You got it.
And yeah, and it's, I mean, this is where we are. This is where we are.
And remember what President Johnson said on the racism side. He says, as long as the least and the poorest whites think that they can look down upon blacks and other races as inferior, that we would never have equality. And it's no accident that the go-to for this administration for suppression, that their go-tos have been racism, and that includes the whole deportation movement and the anti-immigrants movement. And I know people say, nah, that doesn't have anything to do with black folks. Oh, yes, it does. You're not paying attention.
Yes.
And the other one, of course, is that they've been able to, use fear and hate as part of that agenda, because they realize that gets people out of any kind of rational thinking, and that people get into pure emotional identity thinking. And it's no accident that during this entire race in 2024, you had Trump getting on the stump over and over, talking about his beautiful white skin.
Yes.
Come on, people. This was not, then they want to say, blacks and others are too, quote, into identity politics. And his whole race was an identity politic. There's so many things, but he always goes to his two go-tos, that the hate and the fear, the racism, the the homophobia, and, and the sexism. I mean, he just builds his empire and on those kinds of alienating and fearful ideologies. And it's so important for us to stand up to it and say, no, you're wrong. We do not have to operate this way, that we can be one of the best nations in the world, but it means that we got to be open, free, and fair.
Do you think that people, and I'm talking about African-American people, to be specific, Republicans, and those Democrats who also voted for Trump, are offended by the way Tim Scott has been treated, where he was paraded out front? He was their window dressing months ago, and now I don't think that they even give him a call. I mean, they had thrown up him being vice presidential candidate, maybe, but he can't even get a position in the White House or federal government.
Absolutely. I have been pointing this phenomenon out to people. I was at a wedding that was given by the remarkable Hazel Edney, and Dr. Stephanie Myers was there, and many of the others, Julianne Malveaux, you name it. It was a great, great gathering. And this Black woman gets up and says, I am a Black Republican, and I have voted for Trump 3 times. And I'm proud of my vote. And I'm just here to ask in this moment, what would you have us do, in this moment? And Dr. Julianne responded very politely, and I said, listen, and I was very clear about this. I said, I have watched several administrations, including Republican presidents. And I want to tell you that this is the weakest I've ever seen Black Republicans in my life. Where are the Colin Powells? Come on. Woo. Where are the Condoleezza Rices? Come on, where are they? You don't have those Black powerhouses that you've seen in other administrations. You don't even have an Omarosa. Man to God. Wow. Nothing. I mean, this is the weakest I've ever seen Black Republicans. They have no senior advisors that you can point to that are Black in that administration. None. You have no Black spokespersons. You have nothing, because this is MAGA full blown.
Mm-hmm.
And MAGA full blown is not only white supremacy, but people get it confused. This is a brand new this is a retooled, reorganized version of it, because underlying this white supremacy is the worst form of modern day eugenics I've ever seen. And it's coming out of tech. I mean, it's coming out of Silicon Valley. I mean, that's why, you know, when you see Mark Zuckerberg shuttering his school and all the other stuff and all this other stuff going on, but, you know, people don't understand that there's an entire school of folks who believe in what they call not only eugenics, but dysgenics. And they believe that not only are Africans and all African descendants inferior, not only are, you know, Latinos inferior, but they also believe that a good portion of whites are inferior.
Yep.
I mean, they're not just total, you know, everything white is great. They're like, you know, nah, some of y'all are, you know, intellectually deficient and you're destroying our gene pool.
Yes.
That's how out of the world these people are. And they believe that, you know, Asians and whites are, you know, kind of like equal, except for the ones who are unequal. I mean, it is an ugly philosophy. And if people aren't following that, then you don't understand who you're fighting. You think you're fighting Steve Bannon type, you know, 2016. No, you're not. You're fighting, you know, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, who is their guru. That's who you're fighting, and you better know who they are.
And he's a dangerous man.
Oh,
he is a dangerous man.
Is he ever?
Yeah. And I want to point out to our listening audience, viewing and listening audience, that you brought up eugenics. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people might not be familiar with that.
Okay.
But that was the justification the Germans used to exterminate millions of Jews, was eugenics. And they had it down to a science, so to speak. And factions of that are now in our government. And we need to accept that. We had a question here from Facebook, and says, how do we educate poor whites to understand they are being used?
I think that you saw that reaction when Vivek made the mistake of talking about dumb white people. Remember? When he made that mistake, you noticed that meant that he was no longer in Doge, right?
Correct.
All of a sudden, he had to get out of Doge and try to run for governor in Ohio. Listen, if they understood what people think about them and what these Curtis Yarvin acolytes really think about them, it would help. It would help, because when they talk about, they think right now that a lot of the effects of the Doge policies and the Trump policies are mistakes. They really do. They think that this was never designed to hurt them. But what if we told them and showed them that indeed this is the entire agenda? That is to use the anti-Black, anti-immigrant framework to kind of blind you to what they're really up to. And so one of the things people come to me all the time and they say, Barbara, they could not have meant to be talking about Medicaid when all these people will die without it. Ooh. Barbara, they could not have meant to shutter USAID. We know that within this next year, 1.6 million people will die. And I said, folks, they believe totally that a lot of that, if you're poor, it's an indication of your intellectual inferiority.
Yes.
That you're not poor because they're brilliant people, intellectually gifted people will never be poor. That they'll always be resourceful, they'll always be smarter, they'll always do better. And so when they look at all those people on Medicaid, those 70 million, they say, no, they shouldn't even be breathing our air. They're taking away our air. They're polluting our streams. We don't need them. They believe this stuff, folks. So you got to understand that they're not just talking about Black folks, they're talking about white poor. And when they see white poor people in the street with signs saying, "Save my Social Security," they're like, what did the I forget his name, but one of the Trump cabinet members said that his mother, if her Social Security check came, that she wouldn't have any problems, that she wouldn't be calling, fussing, she would know it was some kind of administrative support, a mistake, and that she wouldn't be doing it. And I'm like, yeah, because you're a billionaire. You can take care of her. She doesn't have to worry about not being able to pay her rent. She never will, because you can back her up. But that's the kind of mentality they have. They're like, if anybody's complaining, they must be fraudsters. Folks, this is a new level of eugenics, dysgenics, but it's also a new level of hate. I mean, when you start hating your own, there's something real wrong with you. And I think that we need to understand that.
And I just buttressing what you just said, you may or may not know that I'm a former police officer. And part of my education in the police department was learning how Caucasian police officers looked down on poor whites.
Yes.
I mean, this is a very real thing. And if I'm talking about police officers who are not on the upper scale of anything,
right?
What do you think is happening on the political level? It's just it's mind-boggling to see and to experience that, and just to think that we have someone such as you out here just making accusations about stuff and coming up with stuff out of the blue. I'm here to tell you that this is real. This is absolutely real.
And when they believe, and they've been conned into thinking that Trump loves them, because he gets out there and he says it all the time. I love you. But he wants to starve you. He wants to take away all your medical protection. He wants to take away your income. And he doesn't even want you to have a right to be educated, to have any educational opportunities. What do you think that means? But see, when they hear it, they think, oh, it can't be me. It must be that somehow I got swept into this by accident. And the minute we start really penetrating this and making people realize that they are actually the targets, not the targets they think he's after, that's when things will start coming around. Already, Jesse Jackson Jr. has a great quote that's had me just cracking up all over the place. And he says, my father, Jesse, back in 1984, 1988, that he created the rainbow. He says, but now what I find myself dealing with in 2025 is the pain boat. And everybody's in the pain boat because everybody's suffering. Everybody's being pained by what's happening, but not only due to this horrible ideology of this administration, but their incompetence. They're very incompetent on top of everything else.
I want to get back to D&I for just DE&I. Because people think it's just words. I mean, when this first really smacked me in the face, but by the boldness of it all, was the replacement of the Army Chief of Staff?
Yes, Mr. Austin.
Yes.
Who they miss greatly. Yes.
How do you do that? How do you replace someone who's highly credentialed. The other gentleman, the black gentleman, they came and patted him on the back before they stabbed him. General. He has more expertise in the Middle East and the Philippine area, that area in South Pacific than anybody in the country. And they fired him. Brown, I think his last name, General Brown, fired him for no reason, just because he's black.
Right.
That was the only reason.
Yes, and people, here are some stats that people don't know. You hear about all these different cases and different departments being affected by Doge cuts. Do people know that Doge has cut over 200 plus thousand jobs? And that because of the way, the incompetence with which they have run the civil service and market factors, that as you and I are talking right now, the total job cuts in the United States as of last week were 265,000 job cuts. 265,000. I ain't talking about no 17,000, no 50,000. I'm talking about the total number is 265,000.
And that's not people, that's jobs.
That's jobs.
Right.
Jobs. And of those jobs, only 1 in 5, that's a big number, 1 in 5 are black. 1 in 5 were black. Guess who has been hammered very bad by this? Not only all the white people that you see on TV about they lost their jobs, but also women. Those white women that didn't listen to us. They have taken a big hit, because when they say DEI, there are 3 classes of people. There are 3 classes of people they're after. They're after blacks, browns, and any other racial groups that aren't white. They're after women of all races. And, of course, they're after, immigrants because they, want to, harm, anybody who's an immigrant. But folks, really think when they hear all of this, that they're only after blacks. And they're making a big mistake of not understanding. And they're saying, Barbara, why are they cutting NIH? Why are they cutting cancer research? Why are they cutting, breast cancer research? Why are they cutting, research into, saving lives? I said, because they don't intend to. Right. These people really, really, I'm so sorry, folks. I know this is a harsh show for me to be talking about this, but I do want you to really understand how wicked this is. And in law school they teach us one thing, Mr. Carter, is that if you don't ask the right question, you get the wrong answer. Right. And that you'll be pursuing the wrong, the wrong solution, and that you got to know what you're actually fighting. So I would, can I give 2 resources for people to look at? Absolutely. We can put them on our page. So they don't think that you and I are just making stuff up? Absolutely. There are 2 really amazing resources out there for you to learn about all of this. Go to, I want to give a big shout out to some of these new emerging leaders, and especially Reverend Otis Moss III. He has a video that he produced on March 16th of this year on what he calls the puppet masters controlling the puppet. And it's only 5 minutes because he knows folks don't want to watch something for a long period of time. So it's 5 minutes long. And it's one of the best encapsulations of what the people are who are behind the Trump administration. It's one of the best explanations. He does it with great graphics, with great brevity, with great clarity, and that's why I love him. And I love, his work. I've never met him. I just love the fact that he's out there leading these boycotts, defending the African American Museum, that he's at the Smithsonian, that he's and across the country, that he's doing all this great work. But that's because he has a good political analysis. He understands what we're fighting. And when we talk about DEI, they are purposefully, making it their little boogeyman to try to scare people to death. And try to make people feel that all these unqualified people of other races are taking their jobs, and that's who they're getting rid of. But they're getting rid of a whole lot of white men. But the other resource that is powerful, it just came out last week, is by Robin D.G. Kelly. It's a beautiful video, but it's long now. This one is 54 minutes, and it's entitled The Black Radical Tradition Against Fascism and Genocide, the long durée, D-U-R-E-E. And it is absolutely great. I mean, he goes into this with such clarity, with, tracking our history, all the way back to, who would have thought some of our leaders in fighting fascism, of course, were people like, James Baldwin, people like, he talks about, Langston Hughes. Who would have thought Langston Hughes had all this intellectual clarity about fascism and racism? And he does a good job of showing, Paul Robeson, and, so many others in their fight. But also he shows you how this fight has evolved over the years. And, people like to say, well, this isn't my grandmother's movement. Yeah, it ain't, but but it still is a movement. And so I want folks to, understand the origins, that most things don't just come out of nowhere. They have history to them. And that's why we have to know our history, but that's why they're trying to destroy our history, right?
Oh, yeah.
And,
could you please repeat Otis Moss III's book?
Yes, it's called The Puppet Masters Controlling the Puppet. It's a YouTube video, 5 minutes long, and it's Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III. And it came out on March the 16th of this year. Okay,
very good.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and people need to watch it, show it, share it. Most people have never seen it. Every time I was with the Lynx last week, and I asked in this beautiful room, I mean, a really amazing women. Oh gosh, the Lynx are beautiful. I can't wait to join. They're just amazing. And I asked them how many of them have ever heard of Curtis Yarvin. 3 hands went up.
Wow.
Out of a packed room. 3 hands. That's how they're getting away with this stuff. And so it's our duty to educate people. That's why I'm so grateful for your show. So grateful for you making sure that people have the opportunity to get real knowledge, just not sound bites. We can get sound bites any day. You can go on your Twitter, whatever, and get that. But I love that you're going deep into what is happening.
Robin Kelly's book, The Black Radical, and what was the rest of that? Just we want to get this on our page.
Yes, it's another video, and it's a 54-minute video called by Robin D.G. Kelly. He's Dr. Robin Kelly, I believe. And it's called The Black Radical Tradition Against Fascism and Genocide, the long durée, D-U-R-E-E. And I want to point out to people that he said fascism and genocide. And one thing I always try to teach people, because I get the opportunity, as you said in my bio, to teach every once in a while. But one thing I teach is that the end conclusion of all racism is genocide.
Yes.
If you really believe that people are inferior, and you really believe that they are hindering your life, if you really believe that, then genocide is your ultimate answer. That's why you create, plantation police, right? That's why all our police are so infected by that culture out of the plantations, where they still think that their number one duty is racial control. And all these stereotypes that come out of, that period. We have to understand that genocide is the result. Now, I remember when Vivek went crazy and said that thing about the dumb whites. And everybody like, what are you talking about white people being dumb? We're supposed to be talking about black folks and others being dumb. What are you doing? When that happened, you might recall that one of Elon Musk's top aides, Cash, I think is his last name, received that by saying, by only going worse than Vivek and talking about dysgenics and all of these inferior white people in the US. But I looked at one of his videos that was attached to his rants, and that video shocked me to death. I almost said the wrong thing. It shocked me to death when I watched it, because it was virtually a video showing what they call the Bajiks, which are the Dalits in India, who are Asian, and was so vicious. And it ended up at the end of it talking about how every one of them needed to be wiped off the face of this earth. Folks, that's genocide. That's genocide. And that's who these people are. That's who they are. And so I love the fact that Kelly, because I've never talked to Robin Kelly. There's another bad brother I've never met. But there's a lot of us thinking about this, and a lot of us studying who these people are and looking at these videos and learning about what they believe. And we're coming to a lot of the same conclusions independently. And so I just love that he went straight into the genocide, that it's not only the fascism. So when people talk about El Salvador, people get confused. And they say, why in the world are you wasting your time talking about Garcia? But what people don't understand about fascism is just that old thing where you heard, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Right.
That's this administration. Because if they're able to get away with no due process for immigrants, when the 14th Amendment covers anybody residing in the US, it doesn't say just the best people. It doesn't say the non-criminal people. It doesn't say just US citizens. It says all residents, those residing within the United States. When you allow no due process for them, then you get Trump talking like he is about what? Homegrown. He wants to send the homegrown to these prisons.
Oh, yeah.
What does it mean? People, and people are not listening, Mr. Carter, because they're thinking that, okay, they're just going to be in a foreign country, but they don't understand these people have no sentences. They've never been sentenced to anything. This is life imprisonment.
Yes.
And they're being used for what? Free labor. This is the new United States slavery. And when they talk about homegrown, who do you think they think is homegrown?
Yes. There's a specific reason for that. And for our people who think that just pulling stuff out of the air, we just had news this morning about a Tufts University graduate student. I think her name is Ramesa Ozturk or something like that. But anyway, the details of it all months ago. She wrote an op-ed in the Tufts University newspaper concerning Palestinian support for the
Mhm.
Palestinians. Well, because of that, that was just at Tufts University. She was abducted from the streets the other day, a couple of weeks ago. Then she was shuffled between 4 states. She's now, I think, she went through Atlanta, and I think she's in Louisiana now. But she was unable to speak to lawyers,
That's the
and
purpose.
she's not charged with any
Crime.
crime. So you want to keep silent about this. Guess who the next one is? You.
You, you, and
Now
it's already some of us. You.
I'm old enough to remember that back in the 60s, this was tried to some extent with people who were um, protesters or demonstrators, where they were picked up, arrested, and kept incommunicado and couldn't talk to anybody for hours, if not days. And that was the way to keep them off the streets. And this, you can be silent about this lady or Mr. Garcia because they are immigrants. But I recite that poem almost every week now. First they came. You know, you
Yes.
you now is the time, and that's why I commend you for what you're doing. You're on top of this. Your groups are organizations are on top of this. You have lawyers working with you,
Yes.
and yeah.
I I mean, think about this, folks. We have something called the US Constitution. It's it's not a perfect document. Even though its objectives was to create a more perfect union, it's not a perfect document, but still, it's the document by which we derive our rights. These people have attacked the First Amendment, the right of free speech, the right of free assembly, and the right of academic freedom. That's why they're attacking Harvard and Columbia and all these schools. They have attacked the Fourth Amendment, which is the right to unreasonable seizures and searches. Right. When they're grabbing and abducting people off the streets, what is that? They're attacking the Fifth Amendment right to due process, because the Fifth Amendment applies to the federal government and its obligations under the under the Constitution to provide due process. They have attacked the Sixth Amendment, which is the right to counsel, to having real legal counsel. When you're talking about that shuffleboard game they're playing with moving them around, around these states so they can't even talk to a lawyer, that's evil. The Eighth Amendment, the protection against cruel and unusual punishment. The 13th Amendment, the right to be free of slavery, right? And the only exception to that is if you have been convicted of a crime. Not just that you're suspected of a crime, not just that somebody don't like you. It has to be a conviction of a crime for you to be into any kind of imprisonment and involuntary servitude. The 14th Amendment, due process and equal protection clauses, and the 15th Amendment, they are all over destroying our right to vote. They issued an EO. When I say they, President Trump issued an EO, an executive order that tried to impose citizenship, tried to impose all of these, horrible, practices, including making all our voting data available to Doge. We're fighting that in the courts. Oh, we're fighting. We had a big victory the other day because people, regardless of what Trump tells you, he is not the law. His megalomania, he is not the law. Hear me real loud. He never even went to law school. Doesn't know how to write a law if he tried. And he's just signing all these Stephen Miller and other, Steve Bannon and other people's executive orders. But he is not the law. The only way you can ban, civil rights enforcement, disparate impact, DEI, is by Congress. He can't do all the stuff he's doing is called overreach because it's not within his powers. The Constitution specifically only gives power to the states and Congress to regulate elections. And it purposefully did not give it to the executive branch. Why? Because they knew he would do what he's doing, trying to pursue his political enemies, trying to to position himself for an unconstitutional third term. All of this nonsense. People, megalomaniac, is real. And he has no such authority. That's why he keeps losing in court, because he has no grounding. Do you think if he had any grounding that he would be losing? I cannot emphasize enough to people: know your rights, demand your rights, stand up, don't be silent during this time. I mean, I know a lot of Black folks are hurting, they're angry. They say, well, that painbow is because folks didn't listen to us. They were too afraid and too evil about a Black woman getting elected.
Ooh, yeah. Yes.
And they thought that their little racism, they thought that somehow it would only apply to us, and now it's hurting them, and we so we don't like them, and we let them suffer. But folks, don't get distracted, because the target is us. We're still the target. They didn't, of all those museums at the Smithsonian, the one that they targeted was what? The Black one. The target is us. All those people have been let go, that 265,000 people out of the federal government. I can assure you, when we finally get some numbers, because there's no real numbers out there about who, but when we get the who's, let me tell you, it's going to be disproportionately Black. I asked at that same Links conference for everybody who could raise their hand if they knew somebody who had lost their job. Do you know 98% of the room's hands were in the air? I'm telling you, we are the target. Don't be fooled. Don't be celebrating. Don't be thinking that somehow you're insulated. There is no insulation. We have to unite. We have to fight back. We got to have the courage of our foreparents. We should never, ever abandon the example that they gave us, because the example they gave us, as I was saying at the Parent J. Mitchell dinner on Friday, the example that Rosa Parks and everyone created lives on throughout the world. I mean, we inspired Tiananmen Square. We inspired Arab Spring. We inspired everywhere you have people fighting fascists, our names come up. Our foreparents come up, because they have given the world the courage, the world the example of how to fight back and to fight forward. And I believe in fighting forward, strongly, everybody. So please don't fall for the okey doke, for the hate, for the fear. I know the fear is real. When Senator Murkowski got up there and said that she's fearful, it's real. Uh-oh.
I think you're back.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. One of what's on TV now coming up, everyone's talking about the first 100 days of Donald Trump.
Yes.
And you're involved in a program beyond the first 100 days, setting racial justice and Black history and our fight for democracy. Can you enlighten us a bit about that?
Yes, we're hoping and praying everybody will join us on this Wednesday, the 30th, at 7:00 p.m. You can watch it live for free at aapf.org. You go there and you'll get the information to watch our program. And you're going to love it. Mark Morial from Urban League is on it. Melanie Campbell from the National Coalition for Political Justice. She'll be on it. You are also going to find people like Siobhan Arline Bradley from the National Council of Negro Women. She's on it. You're going to have Kimberly Crenshaw, Dr. Crenshaw, Dr. Kay Whitehead, who is head of ASALA. She'll be on it. You'll find me. I'm going to be on it. And we got some more, because you've heard just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you haven't heard all. I mean, we're going to be bringing a whole lot more analysis that's going to be mind-blowing. You need to tune in. You need to hear not only the analysis, but what can we do? You know, I don't want people to think all this is hopeless, because as I mentioned, we've already won 80 cases. We're going to win more. And we're already beginning to turn these universities around so that they're not fearful. I was so proud to see the letter today with 400 university presidents signing, including my Duke University. Come on now. I've been worried. And I'm just so proud to see, so many that have been cowed and scared because Columbia capitulating and all the rest. Guess who signed the letter? Columbia University. Yes. And sometimes you got to learn, right? Mm-hmm. You got to let them kick you in the teeth and learn. Tough lesson. They say what you got to take a. Yes. So tough learning, but they signed the letter, I noticed. So it's time for us to understand fascism cannot exist in if the institutions that support a society stand strong. And if the people reject it. And if the people, and I love the polling data, people are not liking what they're seeing. They're not saying, oh, well, we'll go silently in the night into fascism. They said, no, they're getting out here, billions, in demonstrations every weekend. They are not taking it, and we shouldn't. That's the only way you win, because once people are silent, that's when they win. Once people are uneducated, that's when they win. So it's so important. So I'm glad that we're having that event on Wednesday evening. And people will learn all about what's going on with DEI, but also we're going to be talking about the attack on Black history, book banning, all of these issues that are so key. And on Saturday, we're having a rally at the City Hall in DC, and then we're going to march over to the National Museum for African American History and Culture that they're trying to shutter. We're going to walk. We're going to march over there. And I'm telling you, you want to be there. Come, if you're even in Virginia, Maryland, come on down. Come on down, Delaware and Pennsylvania and all of DC. Let us march and let us be heard, because sometimes people say, hey, people march. Yeah, they marched and they got the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1964. Fair Housing Amendments, Fair Housing Act of 1968. Come on, don't talk about it didn't do anything. That's why you can live where you live. That's why you can go eat where you want. That's why you can watch the movies you want to watch. Come on, folks. Don't get confused. And sometimes the reason why you march is that visibility, that it helps others to get encouraged. It helps others to stand up. So never downplay the tactics and all the new tactics that people are using. I appreciate it all, but let's not ever be silent. Let's be vocal. Let's be loud. Let's be clear. Let's be very Blue Hamer. Somebody told me the other day, Norman, this tickled me so bad.
I think we're having trouble with you.
Somebody told me the other day said, I'm tired. I was giving a speech. I was speaking on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I work weekends.
I think we're missing some of your. We're having trouble with your audio. Yeah,
But it
yeah.
was beautiful that she said, I'm tired. And I wrote back to her and said, honey, remember Fannie Lou Hamer said what?
And we lost her video. Hopefully she'll be back to us shortly. We do have a question in the chat box. We want to know where can we send donations to help with the march on Saturday. And we're kind of getting towards the end of the program, but I'm hoping that she gets back with us very soon. I did want to close out with my closing statement, but I'll do that now while we fill in, waiting for her to come back. And Jess, this is based on the conversations we're having today. But to those barber chair philosophers whom the national media grabbed onto and played your nonsensical reasoning over and over, how do you feel today? Those are the people who talked against supporting Kamala Harris. Back in the day, y'all know that phrase, right? Back in the day, Black men would have neither tolerated nor voted for a presidential candidate who publicly called his African American female opponent a bitch and a cunt. You were much too comfortable with that. It was you and those like you that have our democracy racing toward an authoritarian government. The man called himself a king. You were fine with that. Now he's stepping on your right to vote, your right to be employed without your race or sex being a determining factor. He is working towards making it harder for you to vote through gerrymandering and to make your vote irrelevant. Perhaps he sit in his office, in his Oval Office, thinking of you and singing Kool Moe Dee's first big hit, How Do You Like Me Now? So how do you like him now, now, now? And welcome back, Ms. Arnwine. Welcome back.
Sorry about that. My
No.
internet is doing its thing, and I mean, anyway. But it's apparently my Wi-Fi is back, so I was on broadband and it knocked it out. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. We have a question for you from this.
Oh, okay.
Ernestine Pittman. She says, where can we send donations to help with the march on Saturday?
Yes, you can send donations to any of our organizations, but you can send it to aapf.org, or you can send it to tjcoalition.org, which is my organization. I'm always asking people to support us. You know, we get no federal money for obvious reasons. And it's important to support our organizations. I mean, people say, how do you act in this time? You act by speaking up. There's one thing you should do, and not every day. We need you to dial the following number. If it's not on your speed dial, put it on there. Make this a daily routine, just like you brush your teeth, you do this. That is, you call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. That is the congressional switchboard. And it will allow you to talk to your congressperson. And you want to do that. And listen, if you don't know the person's name, don't worry about it, because they're going to ask you for your zip code. You need to know your zip code. And they're going to connect you with your congressperson. Or you can say, I want to speak to Speaker Mike Johnson or whoever, and they will direct you to that office. And what you want to do once you get onto their office, you want to leave a message. You can say no to the SAVE Act. That's this evil voter suppression bill they're trying to pass. Mm-hmm. That already passed the House, but it's now in the Senate. We're going to kill it in the Senate, but we need you to be saying something and making it clear that you hate this act, and it should not be out there disenfranchising people. You need to say restore Medicaid. No cuts to Medicaid, no cuts to Social Security. You need to be saying restore DEI programs. Make sure that there's equity and inclusion in our society and justice for all. I mean, you need to be saying, don't vote for this new budget that would do such harm. You need to be saying, get rid of Doge, fire Elon. Yes. You need to say all of that. Because guess what, people? If you're feeling powerless, let me tell you something. They count every single vote, every single message that they receive every day. They count them and they tabulate them. At the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you're able to speak to somebody personally, they tabulate them. And when they tabulate them, they then tell their congressperson who called, how many people called about Social Security, how many people called about education, the education department being cut, how many people called the complaint about Trump, about Doge. They tell them, and guess what? It's the only thing that makes them move. They pay attention to those calls. I mean, really, it's critical.
One of the lessons I learned as an elected official is they tell us the story about a state senator who voted for a bill, and when his co-workers, his other people in the Senate, asked him why did he vote for it, because there was so much controversy about it, he says, well, nobody called me to say that they were opposed to it.
There you go.
So it
there
works.
You go.
One more time, is it APF?
Yeah, AA, 2 A's, AAPF.org, okay. And TJcoalition.org. If you go to my website, folks, you're going to find a lot of good information and a lot of excellent information and ways to be involved, including, this weekend on Saturday. We want to see you at that rally if you can be there. I want to march with you. I want you to look at me and say, girl, I saw you. And I'm going to say, yeah, good. I'm glad you're here. I think that, it's just so important for us to be, in these streets. We're not going to get justice just thinking that these cowardly people in the Congress are going to somehow stand up to Trump. We got to make them stand up. We can't allow them to close everything that we work for and to destroy, and try to, what else, Norman, people don't know is that we did a survey of young people, APF and 35 other organizations. And we found out that the Black young people who didn't have any sense about racism and were saying that they didn't think that racism was a problem, they had never been taught any Black history. Right. That's why they don't.
I believe it.
That's why they don't want to teach the history. They want people to be, what did he say, undereducated? Mm-hmm. They don't want you to know, because if you know the history, then you know what the moves are, and you know how to respond, and you know what you need to do, and you know how to recognize it the minute you hear it. But if you're ignorant and you're not being allowed to learn, then that makes you a sitting duck. And we need to really fight to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's why I'm grateful to everybody who has done anything to oppose what's happening right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's been wonderful. Woo, we're way over the hour, but but there was so much. You just have so much information, and you bring uh, not only the information but the emotion that goes with it to let us know how important all of this is, and that if we take our foot off the gas, that we are in for a really rude awakening very, very soon.
Amen. And think, folks, we can shape our future. The power, mankind always thinks they have power. And what's that old saying? Mankind makes plans and God laughs.
Yes.
It's true. I know how many times, all these people who told me when I opposed Clarence Thomas, they told me I was making a mistake. He's a good old brother. He's going to come around and so on and so on. And I just was being overly active. When I brought out the map of shame, people said, "Oh, hush, don't you dare talk about that. You sound like a conspiracy theorist." When I fight for, George Floyd, people talk about, all kinds of nonsense. One thing I've learned in life is that you don't do what's popular. You do what's necessary.
Wow.
You don't do what's popular. You do what's necessary. You stand up, and years later, all these people were telling you how wrong you were. They'll tell you, "Ooh, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm sorry I even said that to you." Or they'll be asking you to sign their letters or whatever. I mean, folks, you have to not be looking to other people for your affirmation. Have that affirmation inside your soul. Have a sense of justice inside your soul, and feed yourself with knowledge. Feed your heart, your soul with inspiration. It's so important. Do not be silent. Be yourself. Let that beautiful voice of yours be heard.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barbara R. Arnwine, Esquire, for being with us and enlightening all of us, including moi, as you always do. And please feel free to give us a call and come back. I would certainly love to have you again. And I think you and your organization for Transformative Justice really are doing a service, and you don't get the credit that you really deserve. But I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank all of you for listening to us on WCEG Talk Radio, Issues and Answers. This has been fun. It's been entertaining and profound.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye, y'all.